Life is going to hit you. It's going to hit you hard. And if you think you can play it safe, avoid the blows, and somehow glide through, you're wrong. The question is not if you'll get knocked down. The question is, when you do, will you refuse to stay down? That's the hook, and that's the truth. Most people crumble the first time they face real resistance. They whine, they cry, they make excuses. They convince themselves that quitting is self-care. But champions, they get knocked down just like everyone else. The difference is they rise again and again and again, not because it's easy, not because it feels good, but because refusing to stay down is the only path to greatness. Life doesn't come to you with a warning label. It doesn't show up politely, knock on your door, and ask if you're ready before it tears everything you love into pieces. No, life will blindside you. It will take your comfort, rip away your illusions, and crush your pride without a second thought. One day you're standing tall, thinking you've got it all under control, and the next moment, bam, you're on the floor gasping for air, wondering what the hell just happened. That's reality. That's the fight you were born into. And here's the truth. If you think you can dance through this world untouched, if you think you can somehow avoid the punches, the heartbreak, the betrayals, the failures, you're delusional. Life is going to hit you, and it's going to hit you harder than anyone you've ever faced. But listen carefully, because this is where the game changes. Getting knocked down is not the tragedy. Everyone gets knocked down, everyone falls. The tragedy is choosing to stay there. The tragedy is when people get so comfortable with the pain, so comfortable with the floor beneath them, that they convince themselves it's where they belong. That's the death of greatness. That's the slow burial of dreams. You want to know why most people never achieve anything legendary? It's not because they don't have the talent. It's not because they don't have the opportunity. It's because they got knocked down once, maybe twice, and instead of rising, they surrendered. They built excuses. They told themselves stories about why it wasn't meant to be. They made peace with mediocrity because the ground felt safer than standing back up. But let me tell you something. The ground is not your home. It's not your destiny. The ground is the testing place. The ground is the battlefield where you decide if you're a fighter or a quitter. When you're lying there, broken, humiliated, stripped of your pride, that's not the end. That's not the end. That's the invitation. That's life daring you to see what you're made of. Because anybody can smile when things are easy. Anybody can stand tall when the crowd is cheering. But who are you when the lights go out? Who are you when nobody believes in you? Who are you when you're left alone with nothing but your own willpower? That's where legends are born. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows when you decide, I will not stay down. The ground feels easy. That's the trap. It whispers to you, stay here. Don't get up. Don't fight back. It hurts too much. You've done enough. And if you listen to that voice, if you let it crawl into your mind, you'll rot there. You'll live your life telling stories about what you could have been, what you should have done, how life wasn't fair, and you'll die with regret burning inside you, because deep down you'll know the truth. You had a choice. You always had a choice. You could have risen, but you stayed down. I'm telling you right now, you can't accept that. You can't let that be your story. Pain is real, yes. Defeat is real, yes. But staying down is a decision, not a sentence. You get to choose. You get to say, not today, not here, not like this. When you push yourself off the ground, when you stand back up despite the weight of the world trying to crush you, you unlock something inside you that most people will never touch. You find a strength that only reveals itself when you've been broken. You discover that your body can be beaten, your pride can be shattered, your plans can fail, but your will, your refusal to stay down cannot be killed. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you unstoppable. Look around you. The majority are lying on the ground. They're content. They've accepted their fate. They tell themselves they tried, they gave enough, they did their best. But you're not meant to be one of them. You're not meant to be another body on the floor. You were built to rise, to endure, to defy the odds stacked against you. Every time you rise, you separate yourself from the masses. Every time you get back up, you declare to the world, you will not bury me. You will not break me. I am still here. And here's the part you must understand. Life is not impressed by how many times you stay standing. Life will measure you by how many times you fall and still refuse to stay down. That's the scoreboard. That's the defining line between greatness and mediocrity. The floor isn't failure. The floor is opportunity. It's the chance to decide who the hell you are and what you're willing to fight for. And when you refuse to stay down, when you stand again, when you fight through the pain, you don't just survive, you dominate. So the next time life knocks you to the ground, and it will, don't you dare settle. Don't you dare surrender. Don't you dare accept that as your final chapter, you rise, you push, you fight. Because the ground may be where you fall, but it is not where you finish. Refusing to stay down is not some cliche you slap on a poster. It's not a hashtag. It's not something you whisper when life gets a little inconvenient. It's war. It's defiance. It's standing eye to eye with everything trying to break you and screaming back. You picked the wrong one. Every time you rise after being knocked flat, you are making a declaration. You are saying to your pain, to your fear, to your enemies, to your doubts, you do not own me. You will not define me. You will not decide how this story ends. When you refuse to stay down, you're not just standing up, you're spitting in the face of defeat. You're looking failure dead in the eye and telling it, you should have finished me when you had the chance. That's what refusing to stay down looks like. It's not graceful. It's not pretty. It's messy. It's bloody. It's painful. And it's ugly. But it's powerful because it shows that your will is unbreakable, and an unbreakable will is more terrifying than any weapon. People will laugh at you when you fall. Understand that. They'll say, I told you so. I knew you'd fail. I knew you weren't cut out for this. They'll sit comfortably on the sidelines, judging, mocking, waiting for you to stay down so they can feel better about their own cowardice. But here's the truth. They're not laughing because you fell. They're laughing because they're scared you might get back up. Because if you rise after they've already buried you in their minds, you become proof that they quit too soon. You become living evidence that their excuses were lies. And nothing terrifies the weak more than seeing someone do what they convinced themselves was impossible. You want to know why the world underestimates you? Because most of the world has already stayed down. They gave up years ago. They stopped fighting for more. They surrendered to comfort, to mediocrity, to the illusion of safety. So when you rise, you make them uncomfortable. When you refuse to stay down, you expose the truth about them, that they didn't have the courage, the guts, the will to keep going. They're not mocking you. They're projecting their own weakness. And every time you stand again, every time you claw your way back, you force them to face their own failure. Refusing to stay down is not just about survival. It's about domination. It's about rewriting the script that everyone else has written for you. They think you're done. Good. Let them use their doubt as fuel, use their laughter as fire. Every insult, every sneer, every whisper of "you're finished," collect it, build an arsenal out of it. And when you rise again, let your success crush them louder than your words ever could. Because there is nothing more devastating than proving your critics wrong by refusing to stay down. And make no mistake, this isn't a one-time battle. You don't rise once and suddenly everything is perfect. No, life will knock you down again and again and again. It will test you until you feel like you can't breathe. But that's the point. Each rise makes you stronger. Each refusal makes you harder to kill. Each time you drag yourself back up, you become less human and more unstoppable. You turn pain into power. You turn failure into fuel. You turn every fall into a weapon. And soon you realize something. The world can't break you because you refuse to stay broken. You want to be unstoppable. Then stop expecting the fight to end. Stop waiting for the easy path. Stop begging for comfort. The path of greatness is paved with pain, littered with setbacks, soaked in sweat, and stained with blood. That's the cost. And the only currency that pays for it is your refusal to stay down. Every time you rise, you're paying the price. Every time you rise, you're building your legacy. Every time you rise, you're proving that the ground will never own you. Think about it. How many people in history are remembered for standing tall their whole lives? None. They're remembered for falling, failing, bleeding, being broken, and rising anyway. Rising when everyone said they were finished. Rising when even they thought they had nothing left. That's why refusing to stay down matters. Because it's the only thing that separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. So understand this: when life drops you, when people count you out, when failure crushes your lungs, you're at the crossroads. You can stay down, blend in with the majority, disappear into the background of forgotten souls, or you can rise, you can refuse, you can fight back. And in that refusal, you declare that nothing, no one, no force on this earth will ever keep you on the ground. Most people look at failure like it's the finish line. They treat it like a gravestone that says, "Here lies another dream." But failure is not final. Failure is not death. Failure is a damn test. It's a checkpoint, not a coffin. And the problem is, people don't understand that. They fall once, and they think the universe has made its judgment. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. They confuse falling with being finished. They confuse pain with punishment, and that's why they stay down. That's why they rot where they fell. But the ones who rise, The ones who refuse to stay down. They understand something most people never will. Failure is feedback. Every setback is information. Every mistake is a lesson carved into your bones. Every defeat is life's way of sharpening your blade. Because here's the truth. You cannot grow without falling. You cannot learn without losing. You cannot harden your spirit without being cracked wide open first. The ground teaches you what standing tall never could. When you fall flat on your face, you find out what's real. You find out who you are without the applause, without the illusion, without the comfort. You find out how much fight you actually have. You find out if your dreams are just words or if they are worth bleeding for. That's what failure does. It rips the mask off. It exposes you. And in that moment, you either break or you build. You either let failure bury you or you use it to rise stronger than before. The weak, they hate failure. They avoid it at all costs. They're terrified of looking stupid, terrified of falling, terrified of trying and not succeeding. So what do? They play it safe. They aim small. They never risk enough to fall. And because of that, they never rise. They live on the sidelines, pointing fingers at the ones who dared to fight. They laugh at those who fail because deep down, they're jealous. Jealous that someone had the courage they never found. But the strong, the unstoppable, they embrace failure. They don't run from it. They hunt it down. They know every scar carries wisdom. Every loss carries power. They know falling is not the end. It's part of the beginning. They take every failure, they analyze it, they learn from it, they adjust, and then they rise again. And when they rise with more knowledge, more strength, more determination than before. That's why they can't be beaten, because they turn failure into fuel. They turn mistakes into weapons. You want to know the real difference between the average and the extraordinary? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's how they respond to failure. The average person says, I failed, so I'm done. The extraordinary one says, I failed, so I'm getting closer. Every failure is a step forward if you refuse to stay down. Every defeat pushes you toward victory if you keep rising. Every loss, if you let it, becomes the foundation of your ultimate win. Think about it. Every story of greatness, every legend, every champion you admire, they were all failures first. They were rejected. They were mocked. They were broken. They were told no 1,000 times. They were knocked to the floor so many times they lost count. But what made them unstoppable wasn't avoiding failure. It was refusing to stay down after each one. That's what built their strength. That's what built their character. That's what built their legacy. And here's the harsh truth. You will fail. You will lose. You will fall. That's not a possibility. It's a guarantee. But what matters is not the fall, it's the rise. What matters is that you don't confuse failure with finality. What matters is that you don't let one setback define your story. You've got to use it. You've got to grab it with both hands and squeeze every lesson, every ounce of wisdom, every drop of fuel out of it, and then rise again. The ground is not where you belong. The ground is your training ground. The ground is where you learn. The ground is where you toughen your skin, sharpen your mind, and harden your soul. And if you refuse to stay down, every time you rise stronger. Every time you rise smarter. Every time you rise more dangerous than before. That's how failure becomes your greatest ally instead of your greatest enemy. So stop fearing failure. Stop running from it. Stop treating it like the end. When it knocks you down, and it will, you look it dead in the eye and you say, thank you, now watch me rise. And then you do, again and again, until failure has no choice but to bow to your persistence. That's the secret. That's the weapon. That's the mindset that makes you untouchable. People love to talk about resilience. They love to wear it like a badge, but most of them don't even know what it means. Resilience isn't some pretty slogan you put on a poster. It's not some feel-good quote you post on social media with a hashtag and a fake smile. Resilience is ugly. Resilience is brutal. Resilience is dragging yourself through the mud when everything inside you screams to quit. It's blood in your mouth, sweat in your eyes, and pain in your chest, and yet you keep moving forward anyway. That's resilience. That's what separates warriors from spectators, leaders from cowards, legends from the forgotten. Here's the truth: most people don't want to face life will beat you to your knees. Not once, not twice, but over and over again. And it doesn't care how much you've already suffered. Life doesn't care about your excuses, your feelings, or your complaints. It will test you until you break. It will hit you in your weakest spots. It will throw everything at you. Loss, betrayal, rejection, failure, heartbreak, humiliation, and it will do it again and again just to see if you'll stay down, because most people do. They get hit once and they surrender. They get knocked over twice and they never rise again. They talk about resilience, but when it's their turn to prove it, they fold. But the ones who refuse to stay down, they understand resilience is not about never breaking. It's about refusing to stay broken. You can scream, you can bleed, you can collapse, but you do not quit. You don't let life write the ending for you. You fight back. You rise again. You spit in the face of defeat and you say, you can knock me down 1,000 times, but I'll stand up 1,001. That's resilience. That's power. That's what turns ordinary people into unstoppable forces. Look around you. How many people are living at half their potential because they stayed down after the first hit? How many dreams died because someone gave up too early? How many lives became prisons of regret because someone didn't have the guts to get back up? The world is filled with graves of abandoned potential, and every single one of them was buried the moment someone decided staying down was easier than rising again. They convinced themselves it was over. They convinced themselves they couldn't take another hit. They convinced themselves that comfort was better than the fight. And so they stayed down. But resilience, the real kind, rejects comfort. Resilience rejects excuses. Resilience rejects the easy way out, because the easy way is a lie. The easy way will kill you slow. The easy way will eat your soul alive. The fight, the rise, that's where you find your real self. That's where you discover what you're truly made of. When everything is stripped away and it's just you against the storm, resilience is what screams back, I'm still here. I'm not done. You can't erase me. And here's the thing, resilience is built, not born. Nobody comes into this world unbreakable. You're forged into it. You're hammered by pressure. You're bent by pain. You're sharpened by loss. And every time you get back up, every time you refuse to stay down, you harden, you grow stronger. You grow sharper, you grow more dangerous. That's how resilience is created, not in comfort, not in safety, but in chaos. In the moments where you should have stayed down but chose to rise anyway. Think of every scar you've earned. Think of every time you were broken. Think of the nights you thought you wouldn't make it. The mornings where you didn't want to rise. The moments where everything inside you screamed to give up. But you didn't. You kept going. That's resilience. That's your proof. You've done it before, and you can damn well do it again. That's what resilience is, proof. You're stronger than the storm. Proof you're stronger than the pain. Proof you're stronger than anything that tries to bury you. And make no mistake, the world will keep trying. Just because you got back up once doesn't mean the fight is over. No, the world will come at you again, harder, faster, meaner. And every time it does, you have two choices: stay down or rise. That's it. There's no middle ground. There's no gray area. Either you fold or you fight. Either you quit or you prove again that you are unbreakable. Resilience isn't something you show once. It's something you live every damn day. So when the world throws its worst at you, and it will, you don't whine, you don't beg, you don't complain. You rise. You stand tall. You stare the pain in the face and you say, "Is that all you've got?" Because resilience isn't about avoiding the storm. It's about becoming the storm. It's about refusing to let anything keep you down. And once you embrace that, once you live that, you become unstoppable, unmovable, untouchable. Because no matter what happens, no matter how hard you're hit, no matter how many times you fall, you refuse to stay down. You want to know the truth. Most people never even find out who they really are because they never get pushed hard enough to see it. They quit too early. They bow down to fear, to failure, to pain. They think that the world is cruel, that life is unfair, and they're right. Life is unfair. But here's the problem. They think unfair means unbeatable. They think the moment life isn't easy, it means the fight is over. And that's why they stay down. That's why they live average. That's why their lives are filled with regret. But the ones who rise, the ones who refuse to stay down, they don't see pain as the end. They see it as the beginning. They don't see failure as death. They see it as fuel. They don't see unfair as unbeatable. They see it as a challenge, a test, a chance to prove exactly how much they're willing to endure. And let me tell you this, those who are willing to endure the most become the most unstoppable, because pain doesn't break them, it builds them. Failure doesn't crush them, it sharpens them. Loss doesn't bury them, it teaches them. That's the secret most people never learn. Every hit you take is a tool, and every tool builds you into a weapon. Think about the strongest people you know, not the ones who look good when the sun is shining, not the ones who brag when everything is easy, but the ones who walked through hell and didn't burn. The ones who got crushed, humiliated, betrayed, broken, and still stood up. That's real strength. And here's the brutal truth. You don't get that strength without pain. You don't get that power without struggle. You don't get to be unstoppable without first being knocked down so hard that most people would never recover. And you've been there, haven't you? You've had those moments where the weight of the world was on your chest, where you thought you couldn't take another breath, where you thought it was over for you, but you're still here. You didn't stay down, and that's your proof. That's your evidence. You've already proven you can rise, but the fight isn't over. It never is. And that's why you need to decide right now, once and for all, that you will never, under any circumstance, stay down again. You see, most people want the crown, but they don't want the fight. They want the glory, but they don't want the grind. They want the success, but they don't want the scars. They want the victory, but they don't want the battles that come before it. And that's why they never make it. Because victory belongs to the ones who don't just take the hits, but invite them. Victory belongs to the ones who say, hit me again, break me again, knock me down again. Because no matter what you do, I will rise. And every time I rise, I get stronger. Every time I rise, I get sharper. Every time I rise, I become more dangerous than before. That's the mindset. That's the fire. That's the reason you refuse to stay down. And listen to me carefully. You don't owe anyone your excuses. You don't owe anyone your tears. You don't owe anyone your surrender. You owe yourself one thing: to rise. Every single time. No matter how much it hurts. No matter how unfair it is. No matter how impossible it seems. You rise, because staying down means death. Death of your dreams, death of your potential, death of the person you were born to become. And if you let that die, then what's the point of living? People will doubt you. They'll mock you. They'll laugh at you. They'll tell you that you're wasting your time. They'll tell you to give up, to accept your fate, to just stay down. And you know why? Because your refusal to quit reminds them of their own weakness. Your rise is their shame. Your persistence is their failure. And instead of rising themselves, they'd rather pull you down to their level. But you don't listen. You don't give them the satisfaction. You look them in the eye and you let your actions scream louder than any words ever could. You rise again and again and again. And with every rise, you silence another voice that told you to quit. This world doesn't belong to the ones who stay down. It doesn't belong to the comfortable, the fragile, the weak-hearted. This world belongs to the relentless, to the fighters, to the ones who take every blow, every rejection, every failure, and use it as a step closer to greatness. And if you refuse to stay down, if you refuse to surrender, if you refuse to give up, you become unstoppable. You become untouchable. You become undeniable. So when life swings at you again, and it will, you don't flinch, you don't hide, you don't fold. You take the hit, you taste the blood, and you rise. Because that's who you are. You are the one who refuses to stay down. And as long as you rise, nobody can bury you. Nobody can stop you. Nobody can break you. You are the storm. You are the fight. You are the proof that resilience is stronger than any obstacle in the world. You know what separates the people who actually win in this world from the ones who just dream about it? It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not money. It's not even intelligence. It's this: when they get knocked down, they refuse to stay there. They rise over and over and over again. That's the deciding factor. That's the line in the sand between greatness and mediocrity. Because everybody takes hits. Everybody faces setbacks. Everybody gets betrayed, rejected, broken, and beaten down. But not everybody rises. Most stay down. They surrender. They make excuses. They say, Maybe it wasn't meant to be. They bury themselves alive in the grave of their own weakness. And then there are the rare few, the ones who spit in the face of defeat and claw their way back to their feet no matter how many times they fall. That's who wins. That's who leaves their mark on this world. That's who becomes unstoppable. You want to talk about pain? Good, because you need to understand something. Pain is not your enemy. Pain is your teacher. Pain is your proof that you're still alive, that you're still in the fight. Pain is the fire that forges you into steel. And yet, when most people feel it, they run, they hide, they complain, they say, "This is too much for me." And in that moment, they stay down.